Alright, welcome back to the channel, Warhammer Man Studios. I'm Warhammer Man, and today we're taking a look at the most recent Warhammer 40,000 Metawatch. Warhammer 40,000 Metawatch 2022 in review. 12 codices, 4 data slates, 2 mission packs, and 1 new army. It's been a busy year for Warhammer 40,000. We've seen an entire new faction come back from the dead, updated rules for 12 more, and welcomed numerous armies of renown, balance changes, and slates of fresh missions. So obviously the new army being the Leagues of Votann, and this will be the first Metawatch that will actually get some data on them. In this week's Metawatch, Nick Baton collars Warhammer 40,000's Big Cheese, Stu Black, to discuss the state of the meta and all the main developments in the competitive play throughout the grim darkness of the far future over the last year. And I did this just for you guys, went through and watched this Metawatch. It is 20 something minutes long. It is absolutely terrible. If you can go ahead and do yourself a favor and just not watch that, I think you will greatly appreciate it. The sound is absolutely horrendous. It is extremely quiet. It has bursts of loudness, and essentially it is about 20 something minutes with very little actual content or useful information. So do yourself a favor, skip that, and you will not regret it. So they also investigated the current lay of the land in terms of win rates and take a look at the results of the 2022 US Open Series, including the recent grand finale in New Mexico. So this is the most recent Metawatch with our faction win rate percent since the last data slate update. So this is only the information that has come out since then from these tournaments. And they specifically said something like they've had close to, I think it was about 1/3 of a million games played by 100,000 unique players, all played obviously in the tournament scene. But here we look at this, and right off the bat, we can see there's a massive issue with this. Tzeentch is at 70%, Chaos Demons at 57%, Leagues of Votann at 56%, and then we look down here at the bottom, and Dark Angels 42, Space Wolves 42, Astartes 40, Deathwatch 38, and Adeptus Mechanicus 37. And this is correct as of the 28th of November 2022. So this is very up to date. They do not even speak a single word about Tzeentch, Chaos Demons, or Thousand Suns. They don't even mention anything. And the truth is, it's very strange how much attention certain areas of the Metawatch have gotten and how other areas of the Metawatch seem to just be completely ignored. I get the idea of trying to get everything balanced between 45 and 55%. I actually agree with that. You're never going to get everything balanced right at 50. So a swing 5% up or a swing 5% down, not crazy to think that that's going to happen on the regular based on what players play in Army, how they're currently, kind of meshing with the other armies being played, etc. But the fact that they didn't even mention Tzeentch up here at 70% is absolutely insane. And then on top of that also, Tzeentch is obviously Chaos, Demons, and dedicated Tzeentch. But there's not like an actual Tzeentch codex, so I'm not even really sure what exactly falls into that. They don't even address it at all. They don't talk about if there's any redundancy between Tzeentch and Chaos Demons, if any of this information is the same, etc. Obviously, Chaos Demons could be any faction of demons, but includes Tzeentch as well. And then if we just scroll down here a little bit, we see not far down the list in 7th place is Thousand Suns, which is obviously Tzeentch, and then also has the ability to take demons as well. So I'm not really sure exactly what's going on here as far as redundancy in the data. I'm not really sure what falls under the category of Tzeentch. I don't think anywhere on here we see another Chaos God's name. We see the name of obviously the Chaos Demons Codex, and then we see the dedicated Space Marine Codex of the Thousand Suns, the Death Guard, etc. But I don't know why Tzeentch is on here. I don't know what it means, but obviously 70% is absolutely insane. So if we saw other factions at 70%, I think we would expect almost immediately like an FAQ or errata or something like that. So as far as I know, we have not gotten a FAQ or errata for the Chaos Space Marines Codex, but we have gotten one for Demons. So we'll have to see exactly how this all plays out. I'm not sure what is going to fall under Tzeentch, and I'm not sure specifically if any of that information is redundant, or if that's a specific category that the person has put their army in, etc. So I would have loved for them to mention that. They don't mention anything about it. Obviously, the highest number we have literally ever seen in existence on all these Metawatches is 70%. And the lowest we have ever seen, is in those 30s down here. So very, very strange that they didn't address any of that. This is the data that came out since the last data slate, so it's only a few months worth of data. The real issue is the flamers of Tzeentch. That's clearly the issue. Nobody's really talking about it. No one's talking about why they're not getting nerfed, or why they're not getting point changes, or why there's not this certain level of urgency there has been previously with some of the other armies. So very, very strange situation, and it was completely not addressed whatsoever in this Metawatch article, and then also in the actual video. So strange situation. Obviously, we see massive imbalance in the game. Tzeentch, Chaos Demons, and Thousand Suns should not be all at the top like this, all either much outside the potential or very high. Leagues of Votann, I would expect initially, this is our first data, for them to continue doing well, as it takes time for people to realize some of their weaknesses, how beatable they are, and how to exploit those weaknesses. Harlequins and Tyranids still at the top, but now have fallen down into the 55%, as are Imperial Knights, so that is obviously good. So we see their recent nerfs there have essentially achieved the goal. So overall, I would say pretty good. Very, very clear that we need to see something for Adeptus Mechanicus, and then also some kind of boost to Space Marines. We'll see the Astra Militarum data over time here. I suspect they're going to jump up to the top, as the Astra Militarum Codex is very good as well. So very interesting. Not a ton of useful information other than the actual data slate itself, other than the actual Metawatch itself, but not from the actual interview or anything like that. So the 40k Best General was a hard-fought fight between John Lennon's Adeptus Sororitas and Jack Harpster's Orcs. All the action is available on Warhammer TV Twitch channel if you want to watch it back. John took a heavily war-suited army of sisters, backed up with the mortifiers. So we obviously saw the little wrap-up recently in the tournament series. I heard it was really cool. Saw some interviews where they kind of described what was going on and everything. It sounded like a really, really cool event, and it sounded like Games Workshop went all out on this, which is pretty freaking cool. But we saw two of the most competitive, basically members of the tournament scene face off essentially for first place here. So we saw John Lennon's Adeptus Sororitas, so Battalion Detachment, Order of the Bloody Rose, so no surprises there. Morven Vol 280, gotta take Morven Vol. Canoness with the Blessed Blade and Plasma Pistol 105. 5 Battle Sisters, 10 Novitiates right there for the troops. And then we see the Dogmata, 3 Paragon Warsuits, 3 Paragon Warsuits, and 3 Paragon Warsuits. So maxing out 9 Paragon Warsuits, aka the Nundum build. Very, very cool. Very, very cool. Definitely not surprised by that, but pretty neat. And then we see 5 Sisters Repentia. So he went with the minimum squads, 2 squads of those Sisters Repentia. And then Seraphim and Zephyrim squad, again, minimum squads of them as well. And then 4 Mortifiers. So decent little point sink, but these things are, they're a threat. They're definitely something to be dealt with. And then we see an Immolator as well, which is kind of surprising because typically we had seen, rhinos being used almost exclusively. And then on top of that, he does have 2 5-man or 5-woman sister squads. So you would think he would go with a rhino there. But interesting nonetheless. I think probably the Immolation Flamers are the reason he went with that. They're going to help him clear out a lot of chaff, potentially demons, etc. So really nice list. Definitely a super nice list. I like how it's been fine-tuned and everything. It's not quite a cookie cutter build, but very close to it. He obviously leaned in a little bit heavier on the Mortifiers and the Paragon Warsuits, and a little lighter on Seraphim, Zephyrim, Sisters of Repentia. Overall, though, really like the list. Absolutely phenomenal. And then, meanwhile, Jack's Orcs were heavy on the Beast Snagas with a storm of Squig Hogs and Commandos. So again, a pretty, I would say a fairly typical list for the Orcs as well. So let's take a look at Jack's Harpster's Orcs. So they were subfaction Goths, which is Gazes. We see the Beast Boss on Squigosaur. We see Boss Zagstruck, a Weird Boy, 10 Beast Snagaboys, 10 Beast Snagaboys, 10 Beast Snagaboys, and 10 Gretchen. And then we see 5 Commandos, just with the boss knob and power claw. Times 3, so 555. And then we see a knob on Smash a Squig, 4 Squig hobgrot, 4 Squig hobgrot with a bomb squig, and 3 Squig hobgrot. And then we see threat overload over 9,000. Triple kill rigs. Absolutely insane. These are massive models. They're super strong, and obviously the threat overload paid off for him. And finally, to fill out the army, we see a patrol detachment with Mazrog Scrag Bad, and this is snake bites, and then 10 Gretchen as well. So again, very good list for the orcs, obviously leading in hard on the threat overload with those big kill rigs. Alright, and then unsurprisingly, the Adeptus Astartes remain the most popular faction with 17% of all players. After them are Tyranids, Tau Empire, Custodes, and Necrons. So really not surprised to see Adeptus Astartes at the top. Obviously, we see tons and tons of people play Space Marines, and there's tons and tons of armies, factions within that. So, sub-factions, I should say. So it makes sense that you would have a strong concentration of players there. And then also you see Necrons at the top of the list there as well. Or, you know, in the top few. That makes sense also because they are the army that's in the starter set. You would think the same thing with Death Guard as well, because the Death Guard were in all the starters from the previous edition. So there's lots more Death Guard players than there would be otherwise. And that, you know, transfers over obviously to Necrons, and then Space Marines are almost in every starter set. So again, same type of thing. Tyranids, Tau, and Custodes all had pretty strong performances this year. They're all pretty unique armies, and in general pretty popular. So no surprises there. But it's the Harlequins and Tyranids that top the 2022 leaderboard, both boasting a 61% win rate over the course of the whole year. They're followed by Custodes, Leagues of Votann, and Tau. So that is actually kind of interesting to me. So we don't see a ton of Harlequin players. We see obviously a lot of Tyranid players, but both had pretty consistent win rates well outside the bracket over the year. Now, obviously now that has been toned down quite a bit because a lot of that data was pre-nerf data. So it does definitely skew it more towards the strong side because the better part of the year was played with either no nerfs or only a couple of nerfs. Custodes also did really well earlier in the year, but have not been performing particularly well as of late. I'm not sure why they would include Leagues of Votann on this list. I think, honestly, it seems like they're trying to build a narrative. If we literally have one data slate worth of data, I mean, the Leagues of Votann Codex has not been out for that long, and the entire range has only been out for, you know, a few weeks or months at this point in time. So you basically have a couple months worth of data for the Leagues of Votann, and you're talking about over the year. Why are we talking about something over a whole year that only applies to one of these factions for literally like a few weeks or months? Very, very strange. Again, seems like they're trying to, you know, basically put forth some kind of narrative about the Leagues of Votann. Very, very strange that they would be included on statistics that are talking about the overall win rate for a year. Very, very strange. So here we see the faction 2022 overall win rate. Harlequins 61, Tyranids 61, Adeptus Custodes 58, Leagues of Votann 55. But they did tone it down pretty nicely. We see Chaos Demons still at the top, even with all the year data. But we can see, you know, when we come down here to the bottom, Astra Militarum obviously just got their new codex. Adeptus Astartes, no surprise there. Adeptus Mechanicus, and then we basically just have more Space Marine factions, including, you know, Chaos Space Marine faction. But overall, in my opinion, this is very strange to me. Data taken from the 1st of January through the 28th of November. So how much of that data did they even collect on Leagues of Votann? How many games is that? How many months of data is that? Very, very strange how Games Workshop has put forth these numbers. Very clearly going for a certain agenda. So that's it for Metawatch this year, at least in the 41st millennium. But we'll have more insights, observations, and raw numbers in January. Next year is shaping up to be a big one. Make sure you're there with us. So, you know, I really was a big fan of the metadata and Games Workshop using this. As soon as they started talking about it, I really liked the idea of it. Quantifiable numbers, results, and then we could base, you know, essentially like nerfs, point changes, rule changes, objectives, you know, mission information, etc. based on that. But the truth is, that does not appear to be what Games Workshop is actually using to make decisions. Very, very strange here. So we'll have to see over time. I hope that we get the World Eaters Codex, and then we get like an entire year of just data and just slow tweaks and just no major changes to the game. I don't think that's very likely, but I think that would be amazing. If we actually just had some time where we could kind of let the meta, force itself out and they could kind of tune it down a little bit. Because the truth is, as we're making all these different changes, and then suddenly a new codex comes out, it can completely invalidate all the changes they made. And I think a perfect example of that is Adeptus Custodes. They have a strong win rate for the year. They have a strong win rate still, but a lot of their data is skewed because they were very good when their codex came out up until, and then every codex that came out since then has just made them substantially worse. So on paper, they appear like they're still good, but the truth is, they are not nearly the force to be reckoned with as they were earlier in the year. So very strange. We'll see how this all flushes out. I feel like lately they're kind of reaching on some of this metadata stuff. The fact that they didn't even mention Tzeentch, Chaos Demons, or Thousand Suns at all, I thought was very strange. We'll see how this data flushes out right here. I think they were just excited to put Leagues of Votann here at the top so that they could basically say, see, it's good what we did. But the truth is, no mention at all of Tzeentch or Chaos Demons up here at 70% and 57%. Absolutely ridiculous. So I'm assuming that when we get the actual like balanced status slate or the Munitorum field manual like points changes, that we're going to see a massive change to demons, specifically Flamers of Tzeentch. Because the fact of the matter is, people taking 3 units of 4 flamers in literally every single chaos army, probably not balanced well and probably not good for the overall health of the game. So we'll see. Maybe they'll address that next time. I know all these things operate with the lag, and they probably had predetermined, like wrote up all this stuff since then. But we will see in time. Overall, though, I have to say, if you handed me this data right here and then you were like, hey, so what's GW going to say about it? I would have said, well, they're probably going to address the situation here, the Flamers of Tzeentch. They're probably going to talk about how certain things were toned back and some of their like nerfs are working. But no, they didn't talk about basically any of that. So very strange. So that is this most recent Metawatch, the last one for the year. Watch the full video if you can bear it. We'll have to see how this all flushes out in time. Obviously, cannot wait to see more data on the Leagues of Votann. So more recent changes and FAQ stuff has changed again, basically how some of the rules work. Some of them in a ridiculous way. If you didn't check out the last video, definitely take a look at that one, as some of the changes they made are potentially like game breaking. Let me know what you guys think. Always like to hear from you. It is funny too that they addressed this and basically talked about how these stats, and even though they have like a lot of numbers and a lot of games played in the tournament, they said like over 95% of all the games played are not represented in this data because they're played at a local store or in a garage or a basement or at someone's house, etc. So again, very, very funny that they take this 5% of data and then use it to essentially affect the other 95% of the game without taking any of that into account. So that's it for today. Let me know what you guys think. Always appreciate your feedback. Warhammer Man Studios, I'm Warhammer Man, and I'm out of here.